Welcome back to Trailer Trash Flips. My name is Mac, and I buy things to sell on eBay and try to make a profit. Today is Tuesday. I've only got 4 small orders going out, which I will show you in just a second. So yesterday, which was Monday, I spent the majority of the day at my parents' house since my dad had pretty much an all-day doctor's appointment. So I brought my 215 ties to their house and started working on those. You can see from these pictures, there were a lot of ties all over. A lot of the time while I was there was spent sorting the ties into the better name brands and the cheaper ties. I did end up getting a few of the ties listed, but not all that many. And I did learn that I do not like listing ties. Now, all the ties that didn't get listed, which was almost all of them, I just left at their house because I do have to go back next Monday and again spend most of the day there. So I'll work on getting more of them listed. And one thing I really don't like is listing things away from my house, because in my house I have 2 areas that I list in. One is here in my eBay room, and the other is the corner of my living room that I refer to as my listing lounge. And I'm pretty well set up in both of those areas. So I ended up making a couple trips back home to pick up some of the things I needed. So let me show you what's going out today. The first item is a finger separator palm protector hand aid. This sold for $8.99 plus shipping, and it came from the bin store for 50 cents. Also going out is my last pack of the weed and grass trimmer replacement blades. These sold for $15.29 plus shipping, and they came from the bin store for 50 cents. Next is the original Drinking Buddies Bottle Buddies, and these sold for $13.99 plus shipping, and they came from a garage sale. I think these were only $1, and they're these little scantily clad men that you put on your bottle so you can identify which drink is yours. And the last item is a breathing lung expansion device, and it's sold for $8.99 plus shipping, and these came from the bin store. They were either 50 cents or $1. I can't remember which one. It's been a while since I bought them. I've sold quite a few of these over the last few years. Not too many lately, but at one point I had a lot of those, and actually, I think I picked them up on a couple different occasions from the bin store. Today is Wednesday, and I've got 3 orders going out. The first item is a GE micro cassette recorder with 2 micro cassettes. There's a little bit better picture of it. I picked this up at an estate sale. Was it last weekend? Yeah, I think maybe last weekend. And it sold for $23.99 plus shipping. And it was part of a bundle buy. I paid $10 for the whole lot of stuff, and I had like 4 items in there. So if you work that out, price per item, I've only got $2.50 into it. The next item is a pack of K&B typing paper, and it sold for $10.99 plus shipping, and it came from an estate sale $5 fill-a-bag. Now, K&B was a drugstore that, as far as I know, they were only in Louisiana. Back before CVS and Walgreens were around every corner like they seem to be now, K&B was the big drugstore in the area. I would say they were a little bigger than what your typical Walgreens or CVS is, and they had a lot of things in there. One of the things that I liked to go to K&B for when I was young was the magazine section. We didn't have a bookstore or anything like that in town, and they had section after section after section of magazines. And as a young fellow, I was into like car and truck magazines, gun magazines, and things like that. And they had everything. So I always liked to go to K&B as a kid. They had their own brand of everything, like ice cream, alcohol, food, snacks, and things like that. I don't really know what happened to them, but they've been gone for quite some time. I'm pretty sure whoever bought this bought it for the nostalgia of having something back from the K&B days. It even has a price tag on it of $1.79. But I don't think the paper is going to be good for anything because there is some browning here on the edge of it. But it's still pretty cool to find K&B things here and there. The last item going out are 2 of these air filters for a Polaris razor. These only sold for $11.99 plus shipping. I did have them priced a little higher, but I've dropped the price several times because they've been sitting. Today is Saturday. And if you've watched my videos for any length of time, you know that it's pretty rare that I film on a Saturday. I'm either going to be out maybe doing some sourcing, running the roads, running errands, or whatever I may have to do. Today, I was actually planning on going out to some garage sales. there were 10 total garage sales that I wanted to go to. Well, there was garage sales, neighborhood sales, and I think there was one church sale. And they were all Saturday specific sales. And normally the first thing I do is I look on some of the Facebook resale and garage sale groups in my area. And there's probably about 20 of them that I look through. There are some garage sale specific groups, like maybe 8 or so of them, but they also have other people just putting up items for sale, even though that's not really what they're supposed to do. So I picked out the garage sales that I wanted to go to late last night. Well, I started looking for the phone that I used to film garage sales and estate sales and all that stuff, and I couldn't find it. I looked for probably about an hour for that phone, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I called my friend Kim, who was actually at the hospital. Her first grandchild had just been born, and I asked her to check in the console of her vehicle for that phone. And sure enough, she went and checked, and that's where it was at. We typically go out sourcing in her vehicle. And if we go anywhere else along the way, like if we go to get something to eat or go in a store or something, I'll put that phone inside of her console. Well, this isn't the first time that I've forgotten to get it out. So I ended up going meet her fairly late last night at the hospital so I could pick up my phone. It's a 256 gigabyte phone, and it was already full of garage sale and estate sale footage. So I went to transfer everything over to my computer using just a USB-C cable. And it told me that it was going to take 5.5 hours for it to transfer. And it actually ended up being closer to 6. I knew it was going to take a while. I wasn't planning on it taking that long. Further complicating the issue is that I can't seem to find a way to make the phone stay on the whole time that the data is being transferred. If the phone goes to shut off, it stops the transfer. So all that to say, I was up till about 6 a.m. making sure that all the footage had transferred. Now at that point, I had to decide that I want to go out and go to the sales or just get some sleep. Well, I decided to get some sleep. So the good thing is the phone is now clear for plenty more footage, but I do feel like I missed out on a lot of sales that I really wanted to go to. Now I didn't get all that much sleep. I only got about 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep. And that kind of sucks because I've got a family function to go to at 5 o'clock this afternoon. My niece is turning 16 and they're having a huge birthday party for her. So big, in fact, that they actually rented out like a hall to do everything. Now, the reason that I use a phone instead of a GoPro is just because the phone is less intrusive when I'm doing filming. So I can just clip the phone on between a couple buttons on my shirt and it pretty well stays in place. It does move a little bit and I have to readjust it every now and then. But filming this way, I've never had anyone say anything about it. Maybe they just assume I'm some kind of nerd with a phone clipped on to a shirt. So I figured I would go ahead and pull the orders that I already have gotten for today and maybe get at least some of those packed to get a little head start on things for Monday. As for today, I've got 8 orders going out so far. I did have one more order that came in between this video and the last video, which is a cam timing chain tensioner and gasket for a Yamaha 4-wheeler. And that sold for $23.99. And that came from a bin store, not one of the normal bin stores I go to. It was one we actually used to go to a fair amount until they started cherry picking so heavily that most everything left in the bins was just junk. And I don't know how they're still in business because there's 2 locations and we haven't been to them in well over a year at this point. But the last few times we went to that bin store, it was really just junk in the bins. So the first of my 8 items going out is, you're not going to be able to see that. It's a leopard resting on a piece of wood brooch. And that's sold for $11.04 plus shipping because I do have a 15% off sale going in my store right now. But that's sold for $11.04 plus shipping. And this came from $10 fill-a-bag at an estate sale. There was a few little things like this that I just threw in the bag because I had no idea if they had any value or not. But just that one item, for the most part, pays for the whole $10 fill-a-bag. The next item is an Aircast Air Select Standard Walker boot. And I got this from the bin store And I don't remember how much it was because I've had this a long time. When I comped it out, comps were pretty strong on it. And this is one of those things that I've reduced the price on more and more and more. So it finally sold for $20.39, and it probably was $4 from the bin store. The next item is a 2-pack of some H13 True HEPA filters for a Muka air purifier. And these sold for $11.04 plus shipping. And these would have probably been 50 cents or $1 at the bin store. I've had them a long time. I actually just pulled them off of my Deathpile shelf the other day. I've kind of gotten into the habit of when I walk by, when I'm coming into my eBay room, to just grab 1 or 2 things off of that shelf, because that stuff has been sitting there for, some of it, over 2 years. So just to try to get some of that listed and make some progress, I'll grab 1 or 2 things on my way into my eBay room. And this was one of them. Next up is a red copper Flipwitch stovetop panini and sandwich maker. And although it's not in the box, it is brand new. I got this from a garage sale. It was kind of like a roadside sale, actually. She had like 3 or 4 of these that were out there, but all the other ones were used. This one still had the cardboard in it and everything. She had it priced for $5. I asked her if she would take 3. She said yes, so it ended up selling for $16.14. Next is a Uncle Si from Duck Dynasty Funko Pop. This sold for $16.14 plus shipping. And this was something that belonged to one of the kids. I don't know if it was either my son or my stepson. And it's still brand new in the box, and it had just been sitting there on that same Deathpile shelf for a long time, because if it was my son's, he didn't take it when he moved out, so I guess it automatically becomes mine. And if it was my stepson's, he didn't take it when he moved out either. I sold a set of pink barbell clamps. These sold for $5.35 plus shipping, and they came from the bin store for 50 cents. There was a point when I probably had 30 different sets of barbell clamps because they just kept having them for 50 cents, and I kept buying them. But unfortunately, they just don't move very good, and I'll probably never buy another set of these generic ones. I may buy some if they're like some higher end clamps, but most of these are just Amazon style, and they just don't have much value. Even at $5.35, I'm going to make a profit, but it's just not worth my time to list that kind of thing anymore. This wrapped up masterpiece is an Ozzy Osbourne No More Tears CD. It's still brand new in the package, and a lot of times I just put shrink wrap over it so that while it's in one of my bins or during shipping, the original plastic wrap doesn't get torn. But it sold for $14.44. I got it from a garage sale that we went to either late last year or early this year. And all their CDs were something like 25 or 50 cents. So even with that one being new, they didn't charge me any extra. And the last item that I have so far are these Paso Media Box storage systems for cassettes. Now this buyer bought 4 of these, and they're all new old stock. These came from an estate sale that we went to last year. This estate sale had an absolute ton of items left on Sunday towards the end of the day. As a matter of fact, the lady that owns it was saying how they were probably going to have to open up for Monday, which they don't usually do around here, just to help try to get rid of more stuff. Now, me and Kim spent several hours in this house. And even with that, we didn't get to look through everything, because at one point I was upstairs looking through some camera bags. There were a ton of camera bags at this estate sale. And the guy who is kind of like the helper there, he actually ran me out. He's like, it's time to go. And so I considered going back that Monday because there was so much there, but I'd already bought a lot of stuff that weekend. But from what I could tell, I think that person owned an electronics store at some point, because the amount of electronics and electronic accessories were insane. And I bought a total of 9 of those style of boxes. It was either 4 cassette and 5 CD or 5 cassette and 4 CD. I can't remember, but it was all the ones that they had. And she sold them to me for $2 a piece. I actually thought those would do a little better than what they have, but up until now, they really haven't. Now, I know that this is an international sale for these, and I think I've only sold 2 up until now, and I know one of those was an international sale. So I don't know if that means these things are more popular overseas or what, but I'm definitely glad to have 4 of these gone because these things take up a lot of room. So that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.